Middlebelt is not north. The Middlebelt of Nigeria is actually south. There are two civilizations in Nigeria. There's what you call the Afro-Arabic civilization, and there's the indigenous African civilization. Unfortunately, Abrahamists, that's the Christians and Muslims, they tend to rubbish and disregard the indigenous African civilization. And what the British did knowingly was to cut off the northern part of the indigenous African civilization and add it to the Afro-Arabic civilization. If we don't look at culture at all and say we should divide Nigeria into equal parts, one north, one south, the boundary would be around Abuja, South Kaduna, which also is the civilizational boundary. Before colonization, the boundary was Zaria, and the Middlebelt, or the so-called Middlebelt now, had a confederacy, a Kwarafa confederacy, which stopped first the Borno Empire, then the Sokoto Caliphate. Although the Sokoto Caliphate eventually in the 1800s were able to break it apart. But what happened in the 1800s? Because somebody said, oh, Sokoto Caliphate. I said, both Sokoto Caliphate and the British took over in the 1800s. Both of them were usurpers. Both of them were civilizational imperialists, pushing their religion, their ways and means of doing things. Now, unfortunately, the Middlebelt, made up of about 300 ethnic groups, small groups, because they're small groups, they all classified themselves as Christian North. But that is because there's so many and they're small, unlike in the south where you have the Yoruba and you have the Igbos, and even though you also have groups. But what they did was, after cutting, the British now engaged in what we'll call regionalism. And that regionalism actually was a platform for what I would call internal colonization. Because in those regions, they had three regions: the north, they cut the south into east and west. Now they now cut those now known as the Middlebelters to the north, and they cut the Deltans to the eastern region. Now, this was not representative governance, especially in the north, because they faced what we call policide, that the political exclusion of a whole group, the political identity, the civilization identity was squashed under the Afro-Arabic civilization. And that continued. You realize that even in Yoruba, the Yorubas caught in this northern region, in Ilorin, despite the kings being more numerous, despite Yorubas being about 17 of the 20 local governments, they placed them under the emir, the caliphate. And this is even a big group whose northern side was cut off, not to talk of the small groups that didn't have a voice. Now, knowing that they do not own the territory that was given to them, they had always been what you call ethnic cleansing. And to be quite frank, the ethnic cleansing did not start with Nigeria. The ethnic cleansing started right from when the light-skinned and the Afro-Asiatic herdsmen took over Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt and all North Africa, and gradually they moved down to where they are now, trying to clean. North Africa used to be all black. In fact, all Europe used to be all black, but they killed, and it's continued. And now they've surrounded the source and core of the indigenous African civilization. So what we need right now is true governance, good governance, representative governance, which, after going through so many governance types, the military and democracy, we eventually came up with the confab. And in the confab, all groups were able to voice their concerns, and it was said that, look, let each state be a federating state where each ethnic group can control, and those who were wrongly put in states could vote among themselves and opt to be in the neighboring states. But while we were trying to do that in 2014, the opposition and the West brought in more Islamic terrorists, from those who had come all the way from Russia into Egypt, into Libya, into Mali, and now into Nigeria. And it disrupted everything and got the government out of power. And what they now call Christian genocide continued. But it was not about Christians or Muslims who are both killed. It's about the indigenous African civilization, where they have, Yorubas have both Christians and Muslims, but we have our traditional institutions. Now, the main problem with the Afro-Asiatic civilization is that they need to wipe away those traditional polities and have caliphates, which follow the Afro-Asiatic Islamic conventions. And based on that, we've pushed, and that is the political solution. Not by bombing, not by military. Let each state protect itself. Let each state self-determine its education, its economics, and how it rules itself, instead of this centralization, which helps the West, the Western Abrahamists, and our local Northern Abrahamists in taking control of our resources and being able to engage in policide and genocide and all other things tying and arresting our economic and political development.